In my junior high, there was a monthly assembly with your entire grade. And the time was mostly used for our assistant principal, Mr. Abramson, to air his grievances with all of us. He would tell us how many hours of detention we collectively served, how many days of school were missed by all of the suspensions added up, and presumably, his words, how much of his will to live we had drained from him that month. And then he would use the opportunity to segue into, I guess, some positivity and celebrate those of us who were not complete degenerates, also his words, by handing out something that was called the Caught Being Good Award. The name is pretty self-explanatory, and we all wanted to win one of these things, not because we cared about being seen as upstanding citizens, but because along with your certificate, you got a coupon book good for 10 Whopper value meals at Burger King, which is a pretty solid gift to get when you're 12 and make no money. But, there were some hurdles. Like, for one thing, you had to be nominated by a teacher, and for another thing, you actually had to, be caught doing something good. It wasn't enough to just not be like a little asshole in class. You had to do something. When he would present these awards, he would always explain what it was that the student had done. And it always really boiled down to three categories. It was like you did service work for a teacher during one of your free periods or after school. You ratted out bad behavior by one of your fellow classmates, like you saw them smoking or cheating on a test or something. Or you returned something that was lost, like a textbook or a backpack or something. And every month, I'm watching people go up there and get their awards. I'm like, how is everyone getting this Whopper windfall? Because in my mind, doing service work for a teacher, I wasn't going to selflessly help a teacher during my free time. And narking out one of your friends just seemed like it would get you jumped after school. That actually happened to Matthew Sugarman. And that left returning something that was lost, which really just, in my mind, boiled down to being in the right place at the right time, which in a school of over 700 people, the odds were not in your favor. And then one day, fate presented an opportunity, sort of. It's after gym class, and I'm done getting dressed, and I get my bag, and I start walking out, and I notice Adam Bernard left his locker open while he was in the shower. And sitting right there in the front was his wallet. And without thinking or hesitating, I just snatched it. It was one fluid motion. No one saw me doing it. You wouldn't have noticed anything was happening. I want to be clear. I had no intention of stealing anything, aside from the wallet I had just stolen. More specifically, I guess you should say, I had no intention of keeping anything. In my haste, here's what I figured. I thought, Adam will report the wallet stolen. Maybe he'll make a scene about it, which I thought would work in my favor. Word would circulate, it'd cause a little bit of a stir. And then the next day, I would walk into the office and return it and say, I just found it, walking to school on Avenue N or something like that. Adam would get his wallet back. I'd get my 10 Whoppers. Everybody wins. Everybody's happy. It was a truly, eventually victimless crime. What I did not anticipate happening was Adam coming out of the shower, seeing that his wallet was missing, and absolutely losing his shit. I wasn't there to see it, but apparently there was cursing, and there was tearing apart his locker and tossing all of his stuff about, and in the end there was crying. I guess in my rapid-fire master planning, I forgot to think about Adam's feelings. I also didn't think about this aspect. Adam was actually my friend, and more than just being my friend, we had bonded because we were two of the kids that were regularly getting picked on. We bonded through making fun of all the bullies behind their backs, and anyone that ever made us feel lesser than. I mean, on any given day, either of us were one shove into a locker or a remark away from just snapping, and I never thought that it would be me that would do it to him. And in fact, I think it even makes it worse that it was a fellow loser that delivered that final blow instead of one of the dumb jocks you'd expect it from. And I just emotionally wrecked him for a fast food prize. I get back to my next class. I had tucked the wallet into my hoodie and then put it in my bag. I had only heard whispers that Adam, his wallet was stolen. I didn't know how it was, but it didn't follow me back to class. But we're in our next class not for very long when Mr. Abramson comes on the PA system and announces that all lockers are frozen, meaning no one can go to their locker. You can't take anything out. You can't put anything in. And this is like protocol they actually had in place for like weapons checks. Like if a kid got caught with like a switchblade or something, they would freeze lockers. And then I didn't panic just yet. I didn't think it was about me. I didn't think it was about this. This was a seventh grader's wallet. It had like $8 in it and like a school ID and a library card. It wasn't like he had a credit card that he had to cancel. He could rebuild. But the next thing I know, Mr. Abramson is calling, he called the names of 10 boys to go to their lockers for a sweep. And I noticed they were 10 kids that were all in my gym class. And he's going in alphabetical order. And I'm figuring out what's happening. And so the way that sweeps happened was, you'd go to your locker and you'd open up your bag and you'd step back and Mr. Abramson would rifle through your stuff. And it doesn't escape me, by the way, that this is like how like prison, like cell tossing went, like in prison movies. This was 1990s Brooklyn. We just thought this was normal. And the first wave of kids come back and then he calls the next wave and I'm like, okay, this is definitely the boys in my gym class. He's going in alphabetical order. And now I'm doing the math and my name is Vega, so I'm going to be at the end of this line. And so I'm just thinking, okay, my time is coming up and I'm starting to panic. Like, what am I going to do? So I turn to the kid that's sitting next to me, Jimmy Corey, who is no stranger to trouble. In fact, he is the most usual of the usual suspects when shit goes down. And I'm pretty sure that Mr. Abramson expected the search to end right when he got to Jimmy, but it didn't because I knew where the search was going to end. And so he had gone up in the first wave, nothing happened, came back. And so I'm doing the math and I'm figuring it out. Like, okay, my turn's coming. So in my panic, I turn to Jimmy and I show him the wallet and I say, I need you to hang on to this for me. And I will never forget the way he just looked at me and said, you fucker. And I didn't have time to explain to him my master plan, which was seeming even less master, like as the time was going down. And so I did what any desperate person would do in that situation. I offered him a bribe. And I explained to him, like, listen, man, there's gonna be Whoppers coming my way. I will give you 2 of these coupons. When you're 12 and make no money, you offer the only currency you presumably have coming at you. And like a true criminal, Jimmy counters immediately with 5. And then I was thinking, like, you fucker. But I didn't have any time, so I said, fine, I'll give you 5. And he takes the wallet from me just as the name of the next 10 boys comes up. My name is included. And I leave the classroom. I'm not too worried. But I'm walking up to my locker and there I am standing there and there's Adam. And standing next to him is Adam's mom. After gym class, he had gone to the row of payphones outside of the gym, the 90s, and he called his mom and within 20 minutes, she was at the school, throwing as much of a fit as he had. And I guess I had thought they wouldn't do this for, a stolen 7th grader's wallet, but I guess it was about the principal or the power of a really pissed off mom who is tired of her kid getting picked on. And I should have identified with this. And I should have known. And when I saw Adam there standing next to his mom, his face had clearly, he'd been crying. There was dried, tears on his face. And immediately it just wrecked me. And I wanted to cry. I wanted to cop to it. I wanted the whole thing to be over and just be like, hey man, it was me. I'm sorry. But you're facing down the consequences and I was scared of that. And in the moment, I was also kind of clear of any evidence. So I got to my locker, I opened my bag, I stood back, Mr. Abramson went through my stuff, nothing turned up. We all went back to class. The sweep yielded nothing. Mr. Abramson was just pissed off like always. Adam, he went home. His mother took him home. He didn't come back to class that day. And I sort of got away with it. But I wasn't thinking about that at the moment. In fact, I wanted to return it as soon as possible. But at that point, I was too deep in this lie. There was so much going on. The only place I could have plausibly found this wallet now was off school grounds. So I had to just wait until the next morning. That night, I felt genuinely horrible. Not like I'm going to get in trouble horrible, but I'm a bad person horrible. I wasn't thinking about the 5 Whoppers I had coming my way. I was just thinking that, for the first time, my actions are going to cost me a friend, and that meant more to me than any consequences that I had, coming at me. And so I made it through the night. The next morning, I was walking to school, and my plan is I'm just gonna beeline it for the office, return this thing, say I found it. I don't even care anymore about, the prize that's coming my way. I just wanna be rid of this guilt that I had feeling. I'm starting to walk into school, and I'm immediately intercepted by one of Mr. Abramson's monitors, and she's like, "Mr. Abramson wants to see you in his office now." So I walk in there, and Mr. Abramson's sitting at his desk, and right beside him is Adam, and right beside him is Adam's mom, and sitting right off to the side there is Jimmy Corey. And immediately I knew what happened. That little fucker narked me out. And Mr. Abramson just says, "Do you have something for me?" And I didn't even try to sugarcoat it. I didn't try to make up a lie. I just reached into my bag, pulled out the wallet, and handed it to them. And I started crying, like big, bad sobs. Very similar to what it sounded like happened to Adam in the locker room the day before, which, I see the irony there. And really, looking back on it, it seems fair and just. I tried explaining my reasoning behind everything. I even tried to sugarcoat it a little bit by saying hey, I was gonna give Adam a Whopper anyway. I was trying to just soften this blow as much as possible. I was gonna treat him to a Whopper value meal, since sort of he helped me out here. He wasn't buying it, neither was his mother, and I don't blame them. In the end, they did, forgive me the way that disappointed people that are better than you do. Adam's mom was really cool about it and didn't even press for harsher punishment. Neither did Adam, although I did still get 2 weeks of detention. Mending fences with Adam took a little bit longer, but in the end, we did. We became friends again, mostly through what had gotten us there in the first place, making Simpsons references and making fun of the dumb jocks behind their back and just genuinely being nice towards one another and being real, actual friends and acting as such. At the next assembly, Mr. Abramson, told us that we had set a record that month for hours of detention, of which I personally contributed 20. And then when he was done, he segued into the Caught Being Good Awards, and it was the usual suspects doing the usual things. And then he introduced the last recipient, and he introduced them like this. He said, "And someone that I never thought I'd live to see ever be caught being good, Jimmy Corey." And he continued, and he said, "Jimmy resisted the temptations of a bad influence and reported a theft on school grounds." It's a really shitty feeling when your asshole assistant principal is trying to keep you anonymous, but everyone knows it's you, and he knows that everyone knows it's you. He was even staring at me as he said the word bad influence. And everyone's staring at me, and I'm just slinking down into my seat as Jimmy Corey is all smug up there collecting his coupons. And I just took that to be the final punishment for my stunt. Jimmy got his 10 Whoppers, didn't share any of them with any of us, like a true criminal. I guess, our relationship never really recovered. We never really went back to being the friends that we once were, and then he moved away after that, and we just never saw him again. I guess in the moment, he did the math, and he realized that having 5 extra Whopper value meals was worth more than having me as a friend. And I guess in the moment, I couldn't blame him or argue much. I would like to think, though, that since then, my friendship is worth a little bit more. Thank you.